I remember the charcoal gray wool coat I wore that day. It was Robert's favorite, and I wore it for him, trying one last time to maintain the facade of dignity he cherished so much. The wind whipped, my fingers were numb, but I smiled at the guests, a machine repeating pre-programmed responses. Everything felt orderly, polite, a neat little funeral that perfectly matched the neat little lie our life had been. But the silence after Daniel spoke was deafening. It wasn't the kind of silence that respects death. It was the kind that precedes an explosion. I sat there, clutching my handbag, my knuckles white, waiting for those two beautiful, long-awaited words. My mother. 40 years of companionship, dedication to the home, nights spent at the hospital, and quiet sacrifices. I truly believed he had finally seen me. But the sound of him thanking Linda Mallister, Robert's administrative assistant and longtime mistress, sliced through me like a dull blade. It wasn't just the public humiliation. It was the realization that my son, my only child, was redrawing the family tree and erasing me from the map. Linda, in her deep emerald green coat, wore the soft murmur of the crowd like a badge of honor. I knew her. She's competent, Robert had always said. Don't be paranoid. Now I saw the truth. She had always moved with the ease of a woman who fit in, positioning herself for years. The final blow wasn't the lawyer's later announcement that Robert had left her everything. The final blow was hearing my son whisper to her, "You're the one who's truly family." In that moment, I wasn't just the wife. I was a stranger, a discarded observer in my own tragedy. That night, alone, I realized my entire life had been lived to Robert's rhythm. The wrinkle on the satin ribbon of my coat, the last vestige of my marriage's dignity, felt like the final snap. I looked at his empty chair, still in its place at the dining table, its armrest cold. I remembered the old employee ID from when I was a self-assured financial consultant at his firm, always seated second from the right. "You should quit. I'll take care of everything," he'd said. And I foolishly listened. My patience, my pride, my 40 years of trust, all of it was buried the moment he died. But what I didn't know yet was that the betrayal was even deeper. The air in the lawyer's office was heavy, smelling of ink and old wood cabinets. The lead lawyer, a man with a slow, heavy voice, read the document with mechanical calm. "Pursuant to the will signed 3 years ago," the lawyer stated, "the majority of Robert's assets, the main residence in Summerall, the vacation property in Nantucket, and the personal accounts, shall be inherited by Linda Mallister." I wasn't just stunned. I felt like I'd been pushed off the main stage of my own life, left standing behind the curtain. I turned to Daniel, rigid in his sharp suit, his gaze fixed forward. No hint of surprise. Not a shift in his expression. As if he had known all along. "You knew," I said, my voice low and trembling. His answer was delivered with a strangely serene tone. "Dad had his reasons." "His reasons?" I choked on the words. What did 40 years of marriage mean to him? Daniel's defense, when it came, was the coldest betrayal of all. He worked hard his whole life. Linda was there for him. She understood him. She respected him. "You didn't." The power of perception. Sukman tua nanthuk. In that single statement, Daniel revealed a truth more painful than Robert's infidelity. To my son, my strength, my ability to manage the accounts, run the home, and support Robert's career, had been twisted into a flaw. "You were just too strong," he would later say. I was criticized for being the foundation he stood on, the one who held back tears and kept smiling. The erased history. Lich subi exo abo? I questioned Robert because he stopped respecting me. I criticized him because he was wrong. Yet in Daniel's eyes, I was merely too traditional, believing that making sacrifices is a virtue. But Dad didn't need that kind of love. He was redrawing the family map and he was erasing me from it. When I returned home, I stood in the driveway, the weight of my handbag numbing my arm. I opened Robert's closet, shirts, ties, and wool vests perfectly arranged, smelling of refined decorum. But what lies were woven into those fibers? Was it the year I forgot his favorite wine for our anniversary, or before that, when I quit my job as his financial consultant and just became a housewife? My search for proof, old ledgers, photos, receipts, revealed the hidden life. A letter from the Nantucket Property Management Company, addressed to Linda 6 years ago. I had been to that house by the sea countless times, not realizing I was just a guest. My neighbor Giselle confirmed it. Linda, the one Robert would take to symphonies, the one who helped him put up Christmas lights when I was stuck upstairs with a swollen knee. 15 years. He had been building golden bricks for another woman's future out of my sight, out of my reach. The town cafe, where Daniel used to get caramel dessert as a little boy, felt stiff and formal. Before I could sit down, Daniel placed his phone face down, a subtle signal that any buzz could be a reason to abandon the conversation. "Why did you send Linda a legal notice?" he asked bluntly. I took a deep breath. "Do you think I shouldn't have? She didn't hurt you. Dad gave her the money. It was his decision. Suing her just makes everyone uncomfortable. Uncomfortable." That word cracked my voice with disbelief. "Daniel, your father deceived me for decades. I gave up my career for this family, my friends, for you. I even sold my mother's emerald ring just to pay your college tuition. Do you know what that ring meant to me?" His frown was immediate, his irritation visible. "You always bring it up like I owe you something." That hit me like a dull blow to the chest. Not anger, not even an argument. Just a cold and definitive distance. Then he delivered Robert's final defense. Dad told me that the happiest years of his life were with Linda. She understood him. She respected him. She didn't always question and criticize him like you did. The irony of strength. Su tro treo qua suk man. I questioned him because he stopped respecting me. I criticized him because he was wrong. But Daniel shook his head, listening as if to a meaningless sermon. "You're too traditional, Mom. You've always believed that making sacrifices is a virtue. But Dad didn't need that kind of love." I pulled out an old faded photograph. "That summer when you were 2, we went to the beach. Your father backed out at the last minute for work, so it was just the 2 of us. You were terrified of the waves, but you knew where safety was. I know you idolize your father," I continued. "He was always elegantly turned out, never raised his voice, always said the right thing. But did you ever think that maybe I set the foundation for that elegant man to exist?" Daniel looked up. No tears, no remorse, just a flicker of hesitation. "Dad did what made him happy," he said. "Linda said she made him feel needed. You were just too strong." The turning point buak nagot. Too strong. That was the word for the nights spent balancing overdue accounts, the afternoons I cooked with a fever, the years I held back tears at Robert's cold silences. I put the photo back in my wallet and stood up, my voice calm but deeply firm. "You're right. I was too strong. And starting today, I'll save that strength for myself." I walked out the cafe door into the rain, the drops hitting the windshield with a slow, relentless rhythm. I didn't cry. I didn't fall apart. I sat there realizing that what I had lost wasn't just a husband and a marriage. I had lost my son's belief in me. But in that same breath, I understood something else. I could no longer wait for someone else to tell me who I was. It was time to live for myself. At first, I thought Linda was just a late-life accident in Robert's story, a calculated opportunist who slipped in through the cracks. But as I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through her public Facebook profile with a mug of cold coffee, the terrifying truth became clear. She was never an accident. She had planned everything. Her profile was a masterpiece of subtle infiltration. Her bio: consultant in the architecture sector, lover of classical music and community service, grateful for life's tender company. The tasteful blur on her profile picture was designed to hide what was truly behind her. I clicked her photo albums. The first image, Robert holding a slice of lemon pie she had made, with the caption, "His smile is my favorite reward." The date stamp was 6 years ago, the same year I was bedridden with arthritis, and Robert told me work was overwhelming and he would be traveling a lot. I thought he was simply evading the burden of caring for someone. Now I knew. He was living somewhere else, without me. As I scrolled, the images became more chillingly familiar. Robert in Linda's living room wearing the wool jacket I had given him, helping her arrange bonsai in her garden. Then the video that made my blood run cold. Robert toasting Linda at Christmas. And Daniel was there. Daniel, who was still in college at the time, with Linda's arm around his shoulder. Linda wasn't just Robert's secret. She had been positioning herself for years as part of our family. I was the woman she planned to displace. This wasn't just adultery, it was a planned coup. I called Ruth Lanier, a former close colleague and a financial wizard. "I need you to help me find something," I said, my voice firm. I confessed my suspicion. Robert had used company funds for at least the last decade to buy properties for Linda, and there might be other unaccounted-for transfers. The fight back. "You're not just fixing a marriage, Maggie. You're looking to expose fraud," Ruth warned. "I want the truth." "I've spent too long in the dark," I insisted. I became a woman on a mission. I found Linda's property records. A single-family villa purchased 5 years ago, right at the tail end of the company's employee housing benefits project that Robert was overseeing. The room was never reserved for clients. It was for her. Ruth's laptop revealed the first damning entries. 3 payments labeled outside consulting support, but the beneficiary company was a shell. One payment of $50,000 was made the same month I was home recovering from surgery. My stomach twisted. Habit indeed was the cruelest prison, but I was finally breaking free. The sun hit the windshield hard on the drive home. The radio played an old 60s ballad. You only find the truth when you stop pretending. I saved Linda's Facebook photos and Ruth's archived payment records to a new folder named Evidence. I was no longer the woman who buried her emotions behind a stove. I was Maggie Smith, the legal wife, the mother of Daniel, the woman who had been edited out of her own life story, and the woman who was about to rewrite the ending. The second batch of documents confirmed the fraud. 3 payments totaling over $350,000, carefully staggered over 5 years, timed just outside the company's official audit cycles. Ruth's note was definitive. "This is potentially a fraudulent gift. This sum lacks sufficient justification unless invoices for services of equivalent value can be produced." There it was, the proof. I hired Michelle Robinson, a lawyer specializing in fraud and corporate law. Her voice on the phone was warm and no nonsense. "I believe my late husband systematically plundered his company to aid his longtime mistress," I stated, my voice steady and clear. I printed everything, over 50 documents, and took the folder to her downtown law office. As I waited in the glass skyscraper watching the Chicago skyline, I made a final vow to Michelle. She betrayed me, and my son helped her. I want her to pay back every last cent. The next few months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. We filed a lawsuit against Linda Mallister, and the case made waves. Robert's firm, his lawyer, and even his estate became entangled. The final betrayal. Daniel took Linda's side. He was outraged. "You're destroying his memory," he said on the phone. "My truth, Samaniel. Your memory of your father is a fairy tale," I told him. "The truth finally setting me free. He was a con man who used money to betray me, his wife, and his son's mother. That's the truth." He hung up. It hurt, but I did it anyway. I had to. In court, Linda tried to paint it as a misunderstanding, producing the fake invoices Robert had given her. But we had Ruth's evidence and Robert's Facebook photos. I took the stand and spoke about the 40 years of sacrifice, the pain, and the ultimate betrayal. The judge, a black woman in her mid-60s, looked at me with understanding. I think she understood what goes on in the hearts of women like me. Justice served. The judge ruled in our favor. Linda was ordered to pay back everything Robert had given her, including interest. The total sum was over $1 million. Linda had to sell her properties. She was broke. I never saw her again. For years, Daniel didn't speak to me. The phone remained silent, and the distance between us was a physical ache. Then, when my father died, he called me. We met at the funeral and embraced. The ice had finally broken. We began seeing each other again. I told him the whole story, not just about the mistress and the will, but about the emerald ring, the long nights, and the foundation I had laid for his father's elegant life. He started to understand. It took years, but we mended our relationship. I was only defending an illusion the whole time. He apologized. I hugged him and told him that I had believed in him the whole time. In that moment, tears welled up in many eyes. Daniel walked over and hugged me softly. "Mom," he said, smiling, "when did you get so good at giving speeches?" I smiled back. "I always was. You just weren't listening." We both laughed. Before the party was over, I took a short walk in the garden. I stopped in front of the crabapple tree I had planted 20 years ago. "Last year, this thing almost died," I said to a few women nearby. "I almost cut it down. But this spring, it bloomed earlier than ever, and it's still blooming." The final message I added, "Even she knew what is still alive should not be given up on." That night, when everyone had left, I folded up the chairs and put them away in the shed. The porch wind chime tinkled softly in the breeze. I turned to watch the sunset. It rested above the old maple tree at the end of the street, as if to say, "Who are you, really?" I took off my heels, walked barefoot into the house, hung up the dress, and went to bed. I knew who I was. I was a survivor, a fighter, and the truth had set me free.